Welcome to our first podcast, Medicare GPS, where we navigate you through your Medicare journey step by step.
Can't believe we're finally doing it.
I know, it's been a long time in the making. Well, I'm Jamon White.
So
this
fun.
is my wife, Paula White. We're founders of Four Oaks Medicare Planning. So, Paula, what do we have on the agenda today?
Yeah, so we're going to keep it short and sweet with this podcast. We're going to go over a topic each time, and then we're going to talk about some stories that we're hearing out there on the street, things that are happening. And then also we're going to have a little bit of inspiration and then finish up with some deadlines and news and things to be aware of.
Okay, so let's get started.
Let's do it. Okay, so today our topic is going to be the ugliest part of original Medicare.
Oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
That's the no out-of-pocket max.
The lack of out-of-pocket max. Yeah, the lack of out-of-pocket max. So tell us, what are kind of the main issues with that not having an out-of-pocket max?
Well, that's something that everyone really needs to remember, is that when you're going on to original Medicare, a lot of people think, I've made it to the promised land, I'm covered at 100%.
Yeah.
And that is not how original Medicare works.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with original Medicare is the lack of the out-of-pocket maximum, because when you're on Part A and you're on Part B of Medicare, that's the hospital and medical component. It's inpatient, outpatient stuff. Well, people don't realize that when you're on A, you have a limited number of hospital days before A does not cover you anymore.
Right.
You have a 150 days.
Lifetime.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
And once you use all of those up, you're responsible for 100% of hospital costs. Now, before that, you actually have some responsibility as well. But after that, you use up all of your lifetime reserve days. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, under Medicare Part B, you have a co-insurance component. It's 20%. Mm-hmm. And so,
That 20% will just eat you up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the main conditions to worry about in this case, right, is going to be people with chronic conditions, maybe a major accident or something like that. And that 20% just goes on forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the biggest one that a lot of people relate to is going to be if you get diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
Because when you go in for cancer treatment, that's typically chemotherapy. That is on an outpatient basis. That triggers Part B under most circumstances, because when you go get chemotherapy, where do you go? You go to the hospital. You go to an infusion center, something like that. Well, chemotherapy treatments, think about it, are not cheap. So while the government is paying the 80% under Part B, you have to pay the 20%. So every time you go in, if you're being treated aggressively with chemotherapy, you might go in 5, 10, 15 times. Well, every time you go in, you're responsible for 20%, and that can just eat up your bank account.
That's what makes it the ugliest part.
Absolutely, because it never stops.
Yeah.
There's nothing that ever caps.
Yeah, I actually had a friend of mine, and her mom, it wasn't a cancer situation, but I think it was more like a liver failure situation. And her mom was just on original Medicare, and she literally told me, she's like, yeah, I just have just sacks and sacks. She had like trash bags just full of all of the Medicare bills because they just never stopped. I mean, it was just constant and ongoing. Whereas if she had a supplement, some sort of Medicare Advantage plan or a Medicare supplement that plugs that, right, that's where that can take over. Yeah. So that's when it comes into the supplements or the Medicare Advantage plan. So what are those advantages and what do those plans bring to the table here other than just kind of plug that hole?
Right. So one of the things that gets people so riled up is all the mail, all the commercials. You're like, oh my gosh, can you make it stop? While I totally get that, we get that. The issue though is there's a huge place for those products. The Medicare Supplements, which are also called Medigap plans, those come in and stand alongside original Medicare and fill in or supplement those gaps. So, that's one amazing thing about a Medicare supplement is that 20%, most of the supplements that you have access to are going to pay that for you. And so there's a huge protection there. The other option that you see when you see all those commercials is you're seeing what are called the Medicare Advantage plans, Part C. So that's a little bit different, but one thing the government requires every single one of these plans to have, an out-of-pocket max. So there's protections that are built into these other policies that the government recognizes are needed in order to fill in those gaps. And so that's what we're talking to people on a daily basis about, because we have to fill in the ugliest part of original Medicare, which is that lack of an out-of-pocket maximum.
Exactly. Okay, so now we're going to talk about just some stories. So it's kind of story time now, right? And so one story I keep hearing is, oh my gosh, Social Security is taking forever to get me my card, right? So typically, they can start 3 months before their birthday month. And I'm just hearing how long, it's taking. It's pretty much taking almost that full 3 months right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm hearing the same thing. I think it just depends upon which Social Security office. So some of the biggest issues that are coming into play, when you're going on to Medicare for the first time, just because you're turning 65, you can go online and go through the application. It's pretty quick. And that usually still is sort of mostly automated. So those are not the biggest issues. The biggest issues is if someone is approaching retirement and they already have A. They may already have A and they're needing to add B. That's a much more clunky process. Social Security right now is saying that can take up to 60 days to add. And unfortunately, sometimes they lose applications. And so, a lot of the people I'm talking to right now, I'm like, look, we need to get this in early. And you follow up and make sure that they actually have it. Or sometimes you need to just take those forms and you walk them
physically walk it in.
And you just pray that you find someone who has a heart and
knows what they're doing
and will help you, because that's not necessarily the case every time.
I mean, do people at the Social Security office have a heart? Sorry, no offense to anybody that works at the Social
Some
Security
of them
office.
Absolutely do. Some of them will yell at you, but some of them will understand this is a huge part of your Medicare journey is getting in the program and having health coverage.
Right.
And so I'm surprised at some of the stories I hear. Yeah, I had one story in particular comes to mind. I had an individual's husband and a wife that were coming off of his employer plan. He's retiring. And so we set everything into motion, had plenty of time.
He's already on A, right?
Already on A, and so we were adding B. And so he put in his application and she put in hers. And it should have flowed very smoothly.
Right.
He got everything in process, and it was supposed to go into effect October 1.
Okay.
2 weeks go by, nothing. A month goes by, nothing. It wasn't until middle of December that she got her Part B.
So we're at 2 months there?
2 months.
Wow.
And the issue that ended up happening was they had put her application with his. So they never acknowledged that they received her application. And this was even after I recommended you need to follow up. Keep following up, because something
they were on
it,
wrong. But it still was just
They were still on it, and it took forever.
Wow.
And I'm hearing those stories more and more. Yeah. Maybe not an application being stapled to the
someone else's,
but them losing the applications. Yeah. And that's the thing. You have to follow up and you have to prepare.
And you got to start early.
As you can.
You just have to start early.
And I always say, contact us 3 months prior. Now, if you get laid off and there's a quick transition, call us immediately. Yeah. But let's buffer in some time so that you're not biting your fingernails.
Well, I think even 3 months is that's like, I definitely think they need to contact us more like 6 months before their retirement. That way we can walk them through and that they're ready to go by that 3 months.
Well, we just set a timeline. Usually we establish a target date, which is when you're going to come off of that employer plan in particular. In this situation we're talking about, we establish that target date and then we work back from it. So again, we're taking everything step by step.
Step by step, exactly. Yeah, that brings us into that Social Security office story brings us right into our inspirational quote of the day, and that is from Yogi Berra. I absolutely hate Yogi Berra, but love his quotes. And today's quote is, "If the world were perfect, it wouldn't be."
Interesting.
That fits right into that. Yeah, so now we're going to move into our next segment, which is going to be the news and deadlines. So what's kind of the what's upcoming on that?
Well, I always tell people, there's always these time periods that are opened up to make decisions and make changes. Now, we just finished annual election period, AEP. It ended December 7th, which is the biggest time. That's where you see all the commercials and all that. It's where everyone was making changes on their drug plan, the Medicare Advantage plan, just going back to original Medicare if you wanted a supplement. So that period is done, but people don't realize that there is another window that's opened up between January and March. It's called the Open Enrollment Period, OEP. So it's a little bit more limited, but it's very helpful for someone to know about this, because if you have a Medicare Advantage plan that you didn't switch, but you really wanted to, or maybe you did switch and now you're regretting it.
You wish you didn't.
Well, guess what? You can make a one-time change.
Oh.
The other thing is if you want to go back to original Medicare, maybe you're just like, I want to supplement, I want to go back to original Medicare. You can do it during this time as well.
Okay, so if you'd gone to Advantage earlier in the year and you're like, wait, I think I want a Plan G or Plan N or one of those, during this open enrollment period, they can move back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Only through the end of March. So January 1st through March 31st.
Okay.
The other thing I always let people know is you would be surprised at the number of times you can make a change potentially that you didn't. Sometimes these windows close and you're like, I'm out of luck. Call us.
Yeah.
Because there's even what are called special election periods that open up.
And apparently, most of Texas is in a drought. And so somehow that applies.
There's different counties that these apply to, border security, disaster. So anyway, there
might be other little special things going on.
So if you feel like your options are gone, they might not be.
Yeah.
So it's, again, just call, because we know which counties, which disaster declarations we know, and we can utilize them.
Info.
If they're available.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So there you go. That's our first podcast episode in the books. Give me some of that. And we're just thrilled to be doing this and thrilled to be doing it together, because we do like each other.
We do.
And love to share Medicare information with you guys.
Speaking of sharing Medicare information, we have a blog.
Yeah. So the stuff we've talked about, obviously, we've got our blog on Medicare, original Medicare is what we're talking about today, and that out-of-pocket max. So check out that blog. I'll put that in the description below. And then also we have a sign-up tutorial. So we're talking about signing up for A or signing up for B. We have a video on the resources page where Jamon literally walks you through it with the computer screen and saying, hey, here's where you click here, you click here. So it's a step-by-step walkthrough.
And where's the resources page?
On the website. And I'm going to also put it in the link below.
GoFourOaks.com.
GoFourOaks.com. Thank you. That was good. That was a good plug for the website. Yes, our resources page. I will put it all in the description. Make sure to like and subscribe. And tune in for next episode. We're going to try to do these once a week, so we'll see if we're able to do that. But
and it's a really good one.
It is a good one.
Because a lot of people don't understand where long-term care fits into Medicare.
Yeah. So
and that can surprise people.
Yep. So next topic is Medicare and long-term care. Hope to see you there.